I call the honourable member for Stretton.
Mr Speaker, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I want to place on record my thanks to the people of Stretton for their support. My commitment to you is to always be your faithful servant. I rise today as a proud member of the Palaszczuk Labor government and the new member for Stretton. But the feeling is bittersweet. The reason for this by-election was a sad one. We lost our good friend Duncan Pegg, the former member for Stretton. For over 20 years I was proud to count Duncan as one of my closest friends. We first met at Griffith University and we came up through the party together, started our careers together at the same time, me at the AW and Duncan across the road at Shacker's Lawyers. We were side by side, we shared ups and downs and everything else that life throws at you. It does feel strange not having Duncan around. Duncan loved being the member for Stretton and loved the people there. Over the last few months during the campaign I've spoken to many local residents who've shared their stories about Duncan, and what's clear to me is that the community loved Duncan back. Working with Duncan taught me the importance of putting the community first, caring about the lives of the people we represent and being there for people when they need it most. That the MP is there to serve the community, not the other way around. That being an MP is not about seeking accolades or awards for yourself, but about what you can do for your community. Before he passed, I promised Duncan that I would work every day for the people of Stretton to continue his legacy as part of the Palaszczuk government. This is a standard that I aspire to live up to. Duncan first announced his diagnosis in this House in November 2019. This revelation changed the personal worlds of so many of us sitting here and so many people beyond this chamber. About a month after his announcement, reports started emerging about a new contagious viral infection. It is hard to believe, but it has now been over 18 months since COVID-19 first emerged. This period has driven home the profound influence that global events can have on our state and community. In my own electorate, the global impacts of the pandemic are felt on a very personal level. As the most multicultural electorate in Queensland, many in the community have friends and family overseas. So many people in our local area have told me about how COVID has ravaged the communities of their loved ones overseas. But during the campaign, one message from my community was loud and clear. Over the phones, through the fly screen doors, I heard the same thing over and over again. Anastasia has kept us safe. We trust Anastasia. We've done great in Queensland. Mr Speaker, I agree with the people of Stretton. Queenslanders rightly expect their leaders to put human safety first, act consistently and not shirk from the tough calls. I'm proud to stand in this chamber as a member of the Palaszczuk Labor government, and I'm proud to serve under a Premier who continues to rise to the challenge and stand firm in her determination to keep Queenslanders safe. Yeah. Mr Speaker, the Stretton electorate is a multicultural success story. It has the highest proportion of people born overseas in the state and the highest proportion of people who speak a language other than English at home. People have come from all over Queensland, from all over Australia and all over the world to settle in our vibrant, diverse and multicultural community deep on the south side of Brisbane. While we are a diverse community, there are so many points of similarity. In our diversity, we have a lot in common. People in Stretton value hard work, family and education. For a new community on the outskirts of Brisbane, we punch above our weight, with above-average outcomes in education and job prospects. Indeed, the reason that so many people have settled in Stretton is to secure a better life for their children. What I consistently hear from parents of all backgrounds is their pride in their children studying medicine, law, dentistry, engineering, pharmacy, IT or accounting, or pride that their children were at TAFE pursuing a trade or setting up a small business in our local area. This is the key common unifying factor across the community. All parents want the best for their children and want to see them succeed in securing a decent job, pursuing their chosen career and carving out a future for themselves and their future family too. Many locals come from countries where a decent education is not a guarantee, where getting sick can cost you your life savings, where the air and rivers are polluted, where the economy only works for a privileged few, or where politics might not be stable, or if it is stable, not particularly free. Over the years, so many new Australians in the Stretton community have commented to me and Duncan how strange it was that they could get so close to a politician, how strange it is that a politician could be walking the streets not surrounded by rings of security and police, how strange it is for people to be able to access their local politician through meetings at the office, in the community or on the phone. This democratic access is something that we should protect. The experience of so many in my community illustrates that we can never take this or the sanctity of free and fair elections for granted, and as the local member for Stretton, I will always have my door open to the community. As a Labor MP, I will always work to build in Queensland an economy and society that provides opportunity to all, whatever your background. A place where Queenslanders have the opportunity to succeed on their merits, a path from home to school to higher education to a decent job, a means to provide for your family, and if you can, give back to the community where you live. And the people of Stretton certainly give back. One distinguishing feature of the Stretton electorate is the level of community engagement, as evidenced by the diversity and number of community groups. I'm sure Stretton must be the electorate with the most community groups, and we benefit so much for it. In addition to local P&Cs, the Callanvale Runners, Meals on Wheels, Pinelands Lions, Callanvale Lions, Sunnybank Hills Rotary and Neighbourhood Watch groups, our area benefits for the many, many multicultural groups that are based there. Groups like the Taiwan Women's League, the Indian Senior Citizens Association, the Islamic Women's Association, the Queensland Chinese Forum, the Pakistani Australia Community Association and WAMC, just to name a few. All of these groups run off volunteer power, and there is no shortage of it in Stretton. The cumulative effect of this is a vibrant, engaged local community where groups working in one area lift the rest and benefit us all. Mr Speaker, when I speak about families coming from all over the world to live in Stretton, I'm also talking about my family. And when I talk about the values of study and work in our local community, I'm also talking about the values that were imparted to me by my own family. My parents, Bob and Leslie, who are here today, migrated from England in 1989 and settled in Acacia Ridge. We went to the local school, and Mum and Dad, who are retired now, they're proud they still live in Acacia Ridge. They're proud that they've paid off their house and they get by on their pension with a little bit of savings from their super. Mum worked in the Queensland Health Warehouse in Richlands, and Dad was a mechanic who worked at Hastings Deering in Archerfield. He's a proud trade unionist and served as a union delegate in Hangar 3 for the AMW for many years. I have to say, Dad never passed on any mechanical skills to me. I have no idea how to fix an engine, but I do think I picked up a few of the union skills along the way. From an early age, Dad taught me the meaning of solidarity. Mum and Dad were proudly working class. They taught me that we have a duty to stick together to improve conditions for working people and for those less fortunate. Most importantly, this means joining your union and voting Labor. For our family and many others from similar circumstances, election nights felt like a grand final. For working families across Queensland, elections were not an academic matter. A Labor win meant that your local school got more teachers, more funding. It meant that more nurses at the hospital and more cops on the beat. A Labor government meant, most importantly, that working people could be sure they would be treated fairly at the bargaining table with their boss. Mr Speaker, these are the values that I've held for my entire life. I still feel that way, and I will work to continue to work passionately for these values. I'm also joined here today in the gallery by my beautiful wife Stella and our son Oliver. I'm lucky to have them as my biggest supporters. Stella was born in Australia. She's a first-generation Aussie, and her father is the well-known local GP, Dr. Rod Chu. He's of Chinese heritage. He ran the Cooper's Plains surgery for 45 years. He actually arrived in Australia at 13 years old in 1958, knowing no English. Through hard work and determination, Dr. Chu went on to complete a Bachelor of Medicine at UQ, where he met his wife Lima, whose own parents had migrated from Eastern Europe after World War II. Mr Speaker, the story of our multicultural community is very personal to me. It is also my own story and the story of my family. Stella and I had parents who came from the four corners of the globe and settled locally. They started families and had children. Stella and I grew up, met, started a family of our own. Our wedding was held in Stella's childhood Catholic church alongside a traditional Chinese tea ceremony at the reception. And our son Ollie is now growing up in the same community that his grandparents settled in all those years ago. There are not many other countries in the world where you could tell the same story. That is the great success of multiculturalism in Queensland, and that is why I'm proud to represent the seat of Stretton. Mr Speaker, I see my role in this place as making sure that the opportunities I had growing up are continued and expanded. One area in which I take particularly keen interest is secure work. For me, this is the core of what a Labor government stands for. Growing up, our family could rely on Dad having a secure job. We weren't rich, but we could plan for the future, and I want others to have this security and this opportunity. A good job means that Mum and Dad can plan Mum and dad can plan for their family's future. It means they can pay for their kids to go on school camp, afford an instrument or take a holiday every couple of years. It means they can save a little bit extra for retirement. The emergence of the gig economy over the last few years has brought to public attention the fact that secure full-time employment is unfortunately for many a fading dream. Casualisation has been growing in Australia for some years now, but there is nothing particularly new about it. During the Great Depression, many workers would head out that day to line up at the factory gate hoping to get a shift. These days that task is performed via smartphone notification. Of course, tech disruption brings with it immense opportunities to improve our lives. It brings immense economic opportunities as well. Neither should we take a simplistic nor nostalgic view of the past, but we must be clear-sighted about the broad and long-term impacts on jobs and employment. If we want to sustain an egalitarian and moderate political system that we have built in Australia, then we cannot afford to leave large parts of the community behind. How can we manage this change? First, we must be clear that industrial relations laws and workplace laws in this country are set by elected governments of Australia, not foreign tech companies. Likewise, workplace conditions and pay are collectively bargained between employees and their employer. They are not imposed from Silicon Valley. Secondly, we need to continue to deliver world-class education. Over the last 6 years, the Palaszczuk Labor government has delivered record education funding in Stretton, including new classrooms, performing arts centres, science labs, air conditioning, solar panels and more. A good education will give our kids the confidence to navigate the new economy. It is no surprise that the Education Minister, Grace is very popular in Stretton, and it's been great to have her visit both Stretton State College and Autism Queensland recently, just two of the many projects the Palaszczuk government is funding for our local students to give them the best start in life. Finally, we need to recognise that different solutions may be required at different points in somebody's life or career. Younger people entering the workforce will have careers that are more fluid than in the past. They may need flexible skill sets. And as policymakers, we need to think about innovative ways to preserve the type of benefits and security that their parents took for granted. For older people affected by disruption, we will need to invest in lifelong training opportunities, or they may need other support in re-entering the workforce. My view on this is simple. If someone is willing to work, able to work and wants a job, we should help them find one. This core belief can be seen in the government's response to the pandemic. On the one hand, responding to the health crisis by putting the safety of Queenslanders first, and on the other hand, bringing forward funding and investment for schools, roads, hospitals, public transport to improve services, but most importantly, just as importantly, to create jobs and ensure our economic recovery. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to secure work, we must also remember that opportunity alone is not enough for everyone to compete on an even level. People who live with an intellectual or developmental disability face barriers that limit their ability to socialise, work and play. Our fellow Queenslanders often face barriers that others can take for granted. I'm passionate about assisting people with an intellectual or developmental disability enter the workforce. This is fundamentally about inclusion. Meaningful employment gives people self-worth and dignity. It improves mental health, confidence and, importantly, helps build lasting friendships and networks. In Stretton, we have many fantastic organisations that work to make this happen, including Currabee Special School, Multicap, Help Enterprises and the Kyabra Community Organisation. I look forward to working with these organisations to improve employment outcomes for people with intellectual disabilities. We have a long way to go, and I hope that I can use my parliamentary position to champion this cause. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to some final words of thanks. Firstly, I owe a debt of gratitude to my wife Stella and the rest of my family for their support during the campaign and over the years. Patrick dropping off leaflets on his trusty electric bicycle, Mum and Dad driving around the campaign truck, and Stella, who was by my side the whole way, whilst also keeping Ollie and I in line. With the campaign rolling on as Duncan's health deteriorated, I couldn't have dealt with this situation if it wasn't for Stella's love and support. You really are one in a million. Mr. Speaker, I am indebted to the union movement. The advocacy of my dad's union meant that my parents could guarantee a good upbringing for their kids. When I left university, I went to work for the Australian Workers' Union, and I hope that my efforts had a similar impact on the lives of those members. I also want to thank the mighty United Workers' Union for their help on the campaign. Gary Bullock, the State Secretary, Greg Moran, Jake Connor and the whole UWU team. It's great to be part of a union that has such an impressive capacity to campaign for their members. Mr Speaker, my journey to this place is a continuation of Duncan's journey, and looking back, it's amazing how many of my closest friendships were formed during our years in student politics. Merrick Foley, Clinton de Bruyn, Monique Bilianowski, David Shaw, Annette Curry and my brother Patrick teamed up all those years ago with Duncan. In fact, I think it was one of Duncan's standout abilities to be able to assemble a team of people passionate about the Labor cause and to work together to win and to remain loyal to each other. I also want to thank all of the Labor members in this place who helped on the campaign. There was a lot of you. The Labor family really rallied around the Stretton campaign, helping me but also doing it for Duncan. They rallied their own volunteers to the cause, and on election day you couldn't walk 5 metres without bumping into a Labor MP or a minister. In particular, I wanted to thank the members for Mount Omni and the member for Logan for your moral support and help on the campaign. Also, I've been fortunate to have two local federal members who have been great supporters and important sources of advice. The federal member for Rankin, Jim Chalmers, and Graham Perrott, the member for Moreton, are well loved in our local area, and I look forward to working with them for the benefit of our community. To all the elected members who helped on the campaign, your help and support during the past few months has meant a lot to me. To my campaign manager, Kerry Carlin, there is no one more well-organised or motivated person I know, and I'm lucky that Party Office sent you. Duncan would be very proud of your efforts on this campaign. I would also like to acknowledge the Party President, John Badhams, and State Secretary Jules Campbell, and the whole team at Party Office. It's great to be part of a party that is so united. To the Pegg family, Graham, Lindsay, Grant, Cameron, Lachlan and Grant Jr. Your support during this difficult time has meant so much to me and Stella. I know you are still grieving, and I hope you know that we are all here for you. You will always be part of the Stretton Labor family. Yeah. Campaigns don't happen without the hard work of local supporters and volunteers, and I was so fortunate to have so many working on this campaign, helping with letterboxing, door knocking, phone calling and handing out how to vote cards on election day. The support I received from party members across the state and even the nation was overwhelming. I particularly want to thank Emily Kim, Adam and Ryan Chappell, Gail McPherson, Jude Hardy, David Pass, Don and Vicky Mitchell, Michael Glaros and the whole Glaros family, the McDonough family, Celine Z, Connor Rutherford, Emmy Muggleton, Fahima Ahmadi and the Ahmadi sisters, Tarat Achal, Mohammed Sultani, Naya Pauly, Frank Plunkett, Ella Craig, Jack Hughes, Adrian and Neil Kremen, Tony Casteros, Logan Meat, Tess O'Reilly, Lee Ash, Noel Higginbotham, Maddie Sellers, Ali Kadri, Sandy Thomas, Shaji Takanath, Nick Thaki, Martin Young, Sharif Karyakis, Sukhjinder Singh, Hardeep Walga, Prakruthi and Lucky, Teng and Michael, John Prescott, Richard and Annie, the Lamakia family, Daniel Main, the O'B family, Lisa Banyard and her Logan Westies, Aleko, Daniel Gann, Sam Zhu, Alan Ding, Tari Dambo, Kylie Slater, Rachel Stanley, Alex Asher, Jasmine Bullman, Lisa Wilder, Michael Eborn, John Churgan, Hamish Bright, Samantha Fuller, Terry Gobert, Byron, the Wood family, William Wu, Nada Hernandez, Pema Baston, Sam Jones, Lucy Collier, Hannah Harriman, Brendan Williams, Jason McKenzie and Renee Coffey. There was a lot of you. I also want to thank the community leaders Ben Chen, Galila Abdul Salam, Esther Stewart, Lewis Lee OAM, Alan Chen, Ricky Chen, Pearl Chen, Gurlal Singh, Rena Augustine, Michael Choi, the former member for Kapalabar, Janeth Dean and Jitendra Dio for all of your help and advice on the campaign. Finally, I want to once again thank the people of Stretton for their support. As I said before, I will always be your humble servant. Thank you.
I call the clerk to read the next order of the day.